Okay, so you want to own a medieval blacksmith shop. It is market morning in a late medieval European town. The forge is already hot. Farmers are waiting outside with worn iron edges from agricultural tools. A trader wants damaged ironwork put back into service. Somewhere beyond the town walls, officials are thinking about military supplies. Every strike of your hammer seems to answer a problem that cannot be solved with wood, clay, or patience. The attraction is obvious. Iron is expensive. Skilled hands are scarce. Agriculture depends on cutting edges and durable components, and almost everyone depends on agriculture. If a farmer cannot work effectively, the problem does not remain on his land. It moves toward the grain market, the mill, the town, and eventually every table. You are not selling decoration. You are selling the ability to keep work moving. And because the need is so visible, the business looks almost impossible to avoid. A tool comes in damaged. You heat it, reshape it, return it, and receive payment. The same piece of iron may return again months later. One customer can become a recurring relationship. One workshop can become essential to an entire local economy. Then you look around at the end of your busiest day. The floor is crowded with completed work. The fire has consumed fuel. Your supply of usable iron is smaller. The workshop tools have taken another day of punishment. There may be obligations to a guild, a town, a lord, or another authority, depending on exactly where and when you live. And the pile of work that made you feel prosperous has not answered the most important question. How much of today's activity actually became yours? That is the central paradox of medieval blacksmithing. The smith may be indispensable without being wealthy. The forge may be busy without producing a large surplus. And the most profitable-looking job may be less valuable than the dull repair that saves iron, takes little new material, and brings the same farmer back again. The business is not mainly about making impressive objects. It is about controlling the movement of expensive iron through a local economy. To understand what that means, you need to choose a medieval world, because there was no single medieval blacksmith business model. The period stretches across roughly the 5th through the 15th centuries. A smith attached to a rural estate did not necessarily face the same obligations as an independent craftsmaster in a growing town. A workshop in England after the Norman conquest in 1066 existed inside a different legal and economic structure from a shop in a German trading city centuries later. Even the word owner is dangerous. You may own some tools, but not the building. You may control a workshop while owing labor, rent, goods, taxes, or services to someone above you. You may operate independently in one place and need institutional permission in another. You may be protected by a guild, restricted by it, or working somewhere that organizes the craft differently. So imagine a representative late medieval workshop in a European town whose economy still depends heavily on the surrounding countryside. This is not the account book of one documented smith. It is a reconstruction of how the money, material, skill, and obligations would have pressed against one another. Your first investment is not a sign above the door, it is competence. Iron does not become useful simply because it is hot. A customer is not paying for the number of blows you deliver. He is paying for your ability to know when the material is ready, where it must move, how much can be removed, and when further work will ruin it. A mistake does not merely waste an afternoon. It can destroy material that was expensive before you touched it. That makes training part of the capital of the business. In many medieval towns, craft guilds helped organize training, standards, market access, and the interests of their members. They were not identical across Europe, and the surviving summary evidence does not give us one universal apprenticeship term, entrance payment, or set of blacksmith rules. But the economic logic is clear. A skilled trade cannot protect its reputation if anyone can sell defective work under the same name. For you, that protection has two faces. The guild may reduce competition from unqualified producers. It may support training, inspect merchandise, defend common interests, and give recognized craftsmen a place in urban society. In some places, craft organizations also became involved in taxation and local government. But protection is never neutral. The same institution that keeps poor work out can keep you out. The same standards that reassure customers can limit how you produce and sell. The same political influence that defends established masters can make entry harder for outsiders and newcomers. Your first business decision, then, may not be what to make. It may be whether you can legally and socially enter the market at all. Suppose you do. You gain access to a workshop and the collection of equipment required to operate it. A London inventory from 1454 is reported to have valued the equipment of a blacksmith shop. The surviving summary does not tell us the contents or total value, so it cannot honestly be turned into a startup budget. But the existence of such an inventory reveals something important. The workshop is capital. Its equipment is valuable enough to list, value, transfer, inherit, seize, or dispute. You are not beginning with nothing but strong arms and confidence. Before the first customer arrives, wealth has already been locked into objects that produce no return while the forge is cold. And those objects are not your only problem. You need iron. Compared with ordinary materials such as wood and clay, iron is costly. That fact shapes nearly everything that follows. It affects what customers can afford, what you can keep in stock, what mistakes cost, and which jobs create the safest surplus. Imagine your first customer brings a worn agricultural tool. Much of it is still usable. The wooden portion has not failed. The iron cutting edge is damaged, but not beyond recovery. You have two possible businesses standing in front of you. In the first, you persuade the customer to commission a completely new iron component. The receipt is larger. The job looks more impressive. More material passes through your hands. In the second, you repair what already exists. The receipt may be smaller, but you consume less new iron. The customer avoids replacing an expensive component. The work restores productive capacity without forcing either of you to finance an entirely new object. The first job produces more visible output. The second may produce a better economic relationship. This is where the image of the medieval blacksmith begins to mislead. Popular imagination puts the smith beside weapons, sparks flying while some magnificent object takes shape. Military demand did matter, and smithing could become strategically important. But medieval Europe remained primarily agricultural. The quiet economic foundation of your shop is more likely to be the constant need to make and repair the iron parts that keep ordinary work going. A military order can be large. A village full of worn tools can be dependable. That difference matters because revenue is not only about how much someone pays. It is also about what you must consume to earn that payment, how quickly you are paid, whether the customer returns, and whether the order exposes you to one powerful buyer. Take the new component. Before you can sell it, you must already possess or obtain the iron. You must use fuel to heat it. You must spend skilled time shaping it. If the work fails inspection or does not meet the customer's needs, the iron does not return to its original form simply because your intentions were good. Now take the repair. The customer supplies the damaged object. Much of the valuable material is already present. Your workshop contributes heat, judgment, labor, and perhaps some additional iron. You are not merely selling metal. You are selling the difference between a useless object and a useful one. That difference is created mostly by skill. This is why repair can be economically stronger than production even when it brings in less money at the moment of sale. The customer sees a smaller bill. You see less capital trapped in raw material. The village keeps scarce iron circulating instead of abandoning it, and the repaired tool may return to you again. The glamorous product displays the craft. The ordinary repair compounds the relationship. Your first season goes well. The forge rarely cools during working hours. Agricultural demand surrounds the town. Customers learn where to find you. Some arrive with damaged work. Others need new iron components. The workshop begins to feel secure. Success creates the next danger. You decide to hold more iron. The logic seems flawless. Customers have been waiting. If material is already in the shop, you can accept jobs faster. You will not lose work because supply is unavailable. A larger stock also makes you look established rather than precarious. But every piece of unused iron is a decision frozen in metal. You have already surrendered something to obtain it. The customer who will eventually repay you has not yet appeared. If local demand weakens, if agricultural conditions deteriorate, if trade is disrupted, or if authorities impose new claims, the iron remains useful in theory while your immediate obligations remain painfully real. A full workshop can therefore create the medieval version of a cash flow illusion. You possess value. You may not possess spendable payment. The distinction between profit and cash did not wait for modern accounting to exist. The words and records differ, but the timing problem is ancient. Inputs must often be secured before finished work can be exchanged. Workers and dependents must be fed. Institutional obligations arrive according to rules that do not care whether your best customer is late. Your forge can be economically sound over a season and still become vulnerable on one particular day. That day begins with a small problem. A batch of work requires more new iron than expected. One piece is damaged during production. Another must be redone to satisfy the expected standard. The jobs are still valuable, and the customers may still pay. But the material loss happens now, while the payment arrives only when acceptable work leaves the shop. You must decide whether to buy more iron and continue, or delay the orders and protect what remains. If you continue, you preserve your reputation for delivery, but increase your exposure. If you stop, you preserve material but risk losing customers whose own work depends on yours. This is the real meaning of working capital in a medieval forge. It is not an abstract line on a statement. It is the supply of iron and fuel that allows tomorrow's labor to happen before tomorrow's customers have paid for it. The busier you become, the more of that bridge you may need. That is why growth can make the shop less safe. A single repair can begin and end quickly. A larger order can occupy your material, equipment, and skilled labor for longer. If it comes from a military or civic buyer, it may carry prestige and the possibility of further work. It may also make one customer unusually important. You accept because refusing feels like choosing to remain small. The workshop changes immediately. Ordinary repairs are delayed to make room. Farmers who once received quick service now wait behind the larger commitment. More of your material is dedicated to one buyer. More of your reputation depends on one delivery. The large order makes the forge look successful. It also concentrates risk. If the order goes well, your standing may rise. Blacksmithing could support regional trade and urban development, and some successful smithing elites reached positions of civic authority. In places where crafts organized politically, commercial success could become influence, but influence is not the same thing as liquid wealth. A seat among respected townsmen does not replace consumed iron. A reputation cannot be hammered into a cutting edge. Political access may help defend your market, but it may also pull you deeper into the conflicts of guilds, officials, merchants, nobles, clergy, and rival crafts. The closer you move toward power, the less your business resembles a person making objects alone. You begin managing access. Who is allowed to sell? Whose work passes inspection? Which buyer receives priority? Who bears the tax or toll? Which craft gains influence over local policy? These questions can decide the value of your shop without changing your ability to strike iron even once. This is the second hidden product of the forge. The first is restored usefulness. The second is trusted access to the local economy. Customers are not merely buying an iron edge. They are buying confidence that the edge will work, that the maker can be found again, and that the transaction will be recognized inside the town's rules. A guild mark, workshop reputation, or civic relationship can carry value because buyers cannot test every hidden weakness before they leave. Standards reduce uncertainty. They also create market power. That is why historians can look at the same guild and see both cooperation and exclusion. For members, regulation may protect quality, training, and livelihoods. For outsiders, it may look like established producers using political authority to restrict competition and redirect benefits toward themselves. As the owner, you enjoy the wall while you are inside it. You discover its height when you try to expand. Suppose demand is strong enough that you consider adding labor. A less experienced worker can handle simpler tasks and increase the amount of work moving through the shop. Training another person can eventually enlarge the productive capacity of the craft. But skill cannot be copied by issuing an instruction. Until the learner becomes reliable, your time is divided between making and correcting. Material can be wasted during learning. Poor work bearing your reputation can damage future demand. The extra pair of hands may increase activity before increasing surplus. Once again, the busiest version of the shop is not automatically the strongest. Capacity is useful only when the work passing through it creates more value than it consumes. The lesson arrives during an ordinary agricultural slowdown. Perhaps the surrounding harvest has been poor. Perhaps broader disruption has weakened the local market. The exact cause and severity vary enormously across medieval Europe, so there is no honest universal percentage to place beside the decline. But the sequence is easy to understand. Farm households under pressure postpone purchases. Because iron is expensive, they prefer repair to replacement. New commissions weaken first. Damaged tools continue to appear because work cannot stop completely. If your shop has been built around large new orders, the slowdown leaves iron sitting unused and capacity underemployed. If it has been built around repair, you may earn less on each visit but remain connected to essential local demand. This is the moment you realize that repair is not the inferior side of the trade, it is the defensive side. It reduces the customer's need for scarce material. It allows you to monetize knowledge rather than only inventory. It keeps existing iron productive, and it spreads dependence across many recurring customers instead of one impressive commission. The most resilient smith is not necessarily the one who moves the most metal. It may be the one who extracts the most usefulness from each piece. This becomes even clearer when the wider medieval economy suffers a catastrophic shock. Famine and plague did not merely reduce the number of customers. They could disrupt farms, labor, trade, institutions, and the entire network from which a workshop drew demand and supply. No surviving material in this reconstruction lets us follow a named blacksmith's complete accounts through such a crisis. We cannot honestly describe one shop's precise losses or claim a universal closure rate. But we can see what the shock attacks. It attacks customers' ability to commission work. It attacks the movement of iron and other supplies. It attacks the availability of trained labor. It attacks the institutions that enforce obligations and market rules. It can also change wages, bargaining power, and demand in ways that differ sharply between regions and decades. A workshop that looked essential can still fail because being necessary to society does not guarantee that society can pay you at the moment you need payment. That is the harshest version of the blacksmith's paradox. Demand can exist without a functioning market. A farmer may desperately need a repaired tool and still lack the means to compensate you on acceptable terms. A town may value military supply and still redirect resources by force or authority rather than through a profitable exchange. Your work can matter more than ever while your business becomes less viable. The forge does not run on importance. It runs on converted value. Now return to the choice in front of you. The large order is still waiting. Your regular agricultural customers are still appearing. Your iron stock is lower than it looks because part of it is already committed. Expanding again would increase output, but it would also deepen your dependence on material supply, trained labor, and institutional permission. The experienced decision is strangely modest. You slow down. You protect enough material for recurring repairs. You avoid letting one prestigious buyer consume the entire workshop. You preserve the relationships that bring damaged tools back through the door. You treat reputation as an asset that must be guarded, not merely advertised. And you expand only when the surrounding network can support more work without forcing every job to succeed. From outside, this can look unambitious. Inside the business, it is risk control. You are choosing a smaller stream of repeatable work over a larger stream that may leave the forge exposed. You are giving up some visible revenue to protect the continuity of the shop. That decision creates three possible futures. In the favorable future, the surrounding agricultural economy remains active, regional trade grows, and your workshop becomes known for reliable work. Repairs keep material circulating, while carefully chosen new production adds higher value opportunities. Guild or civic membership protects your access without overwhelming you with obligations. Military-related demand appears, but no single buyer controls the shop. You do not become wealthy simply because sparks are flying. You gain status because the town repeatedly discovers that work stops when your work stops. Over time, that importance may become influence. A successful smith can move beyond the edge of the forge and into the civic life around it. Your return is not only whatever remains after material, fuel, labor, and obligations. It may include a valuable workshop, recognized standing, trained successors, customer relationships, and institutional access. But much of that wealth is attached to the continuation of the business. It is not loose coin waiting to be spent. In the ordinary future, The shop survives without becoming grand. Agricultural manufacture and repair provide recurring work. Iron remains expensive, so customers bargain, postpone replacement, and bring old pieces back repeatedly. You work long hours because your own skilled labor is one of the main sources of value. The workshop supports a livelihood, but separating the owner's wages from the owner's profit becomes nearly impossible. If you stop working, much of the output stops with you. What looks like business profit may really be compensation for years of training, physical effort, judgment, and risk. You own a business. You also own a demanding job inside it. There may be no meaningful passive return, no predictable annual margin, and no reliable recovery period for the original investment. The surviving evidence is not detailed enough to calculate those figures across medieval Europe, and pretending otherwise would create precision where history has not preserved it. Then there is the adverse future. The first sign is not an empty town. It is a change in the mix of work. Customers stop commissioning new components and ask only for the cheapest possible repair. Iron becomes harder to obtain or too expensive to hold comfortably. A large buyer delays, disappears, or changes terms. Guild charges, taxes, tolls, feudal obligations, or civic demands continue according to local rules. You use the remaining material to finish existing orders. That earns revenue but leaves less material for the next customer. You sell or surrender workshop assets to meet immediate obligations. That produces temporary relief but reduces future capacity. You dismiss labor or stop training. That saves resources now but concentrates the business entirely in your own hands. Eventually, the forge goes cold, not because nobody needs a blacksmith, but because the workshop can no longer bridge the gap between need and payment. Some of your capital may survive in tools or iron that can be transferred or sold. Some may disappear through consumed fuel, wasted material, unpaid labor, lost access, and obligations that outlive the last profitable job. The economic failure is not a lack of usefulness. It is a failure of conversion. After all of this, how much does the owner earn in a year? There is no defensible single number. The surviving material in this reconstruction does not give us a complete comparable set of product prices, iron costs, fuel use, wages, workshop charges, taxes, working days, or annual output for one representative medieval blacksmith. The currencies alone vary across time and place. A London shop in 1454 cannot be turned into a universal budget for 5 centuries of Europe. Even if a complete account survived, the owner's return would still need to be separated into different things. Part would be payment for the smith's own labor. Part might be a surplus produced by the workshop after material and other obligations. Part would remain tied up in equipment and iron. Part might exist as reputation, guild standing, customer relationships, or civic influence. None of those is the same as freely spendable wealth. The same uncertainty applies to repayment time. A shop inherited within a household faces a different capital problem from one assembled by a newcomer. A workshop provided under manorial arrangements is not economically identical to one controlled by an urban master. Without knowing who owned the building, equipment, materials, and rights of market access, asking for one return on investment is asking several different questions at once. But uncertainty about the amount does not hide the mechanism. It makes the mechanism more important. The smith who thinks revenue comes from selling the largest possible quantity of new ironwork will keep filling the workshop with expensive material and chasing impressive orders. The smith who understands the business will watch a different variable: how much useful work can be restored for each unit of scarce iron committed. That variable touches everything. It determines how much capital sits in inventory, how costly mistakes become, how affordable the work is for customers, how often they return, and how well the shop survives when demand weakens. It also changes the meaning of skill. Skill is not merely the ability to create a fine object. It is the ability to preserve material, avoid failure, judge repair against replacement, and turn a damaged piece of expensive iron back into productive capacity. Every successful repair is therefore two transactions at once. The customer buys more working life. You avoid financing a completely new object. That is why the ordinary agricultural tool may matter more to your economics than the object that earns admiration in the marketplace. Prestige attracts attention. Repetition keeps the fire lit. Now the market morning from the beginning looks different. The farmers outside your shop are not simply a line of customers. They are a portfolio of recurring demand. The damaged iron in their hands is not worthless scrap. It is material the customer has already financed. The crowded floor is not proof of profit. It is a collection of promises that must be completed without consuming more value than they return. The large order in the corner is not automatically your greatest opportunity. It may be your greatest concentration of risk. The guild member inspecting work is not merely an obstacle or a protector. He represents the price and value of institutional trust. The apprentice beside the forge is not cheap extra labor. He is future capacity being built through present supervision and present risk. And the equipment around you is not scenery. It is capital waiting for skilled hands. If the shop succeeds, what you receive may be a livelihood, a respected position, a transferable workshop, and perhaps influence beyond the forge. Some of that is labor income. Some is business surplus. Some remains locked in assets and relationships. Some can vanish if trade, institutions, supply, or population collapses. There is no honest universal annual profit to announce, and no responsible promise that the original investment returns after a certain number of years. What can be said is more useful. A medieval blacksmith did not become economically strong by forcing the most iron through the hottest fire. The stronger workshop was the one that protected scarce material, maintained trust access to customers, and kept essential tools working through both ordinary seasons and bad ones. So you do not really own a shop that sells iron. You own a place that turns scarce metal, skilled time, and public trust back into work. The hammer makes the noise. The repair keeps the business alive.